Welcome to the Higher Ed Athletics Podcast. Today I'm joined by the Director of Intercollegiate Athletics and Recreation at the University of Delaware Blue Hens, Chrissi Rawak. Thanks for being on the Higher Ed Athletics Podcast.
Well, thanks, Travis. I appreciate the opportunity and the invite.
Well, I like to start with, for those that aren't aware of, every institution. I think a lot of us know about the athletic side, but can you profile both the institution of University of Delaware and your athletic department? Things I'm looking for is, institution size, the type of institution there in Delaware, where you're all located, and then the athletic things like, the conference, number of sports, number of student athletes, that type of thing.
Absolutely. So we are located in Newark, Delaware, not Newark. So there's a Newark, New Jersey. So we're always very careful to say Newark. It's a beautiful community. Our campus is gorgeous. We've got this lovely green. We have about 24,000 students. About 20,000 of those are undergrads, 4,000 are graduates. We are located about 45 minutes from Philly, 2 hours from New York, an hour from the beach, 45 minutes from Baltimore, and an hour and a half to DC. So our location is awesome. We're one of the top 35 public universities in the country. We're an R1 research institution, and have about 155 majors. And many of our programs are in the top 10. We're particularly known for the College of Engineering, and also our PT program, our physical therapy program, is number one in the country. So a lot of really, really wonderful things happening here on the academic side of things. Really proud of that. And on the athletic side, we are in the Colonial Conference, the CAA. We've been there since, I think, 2000. We have 21 sports and about 660 student athletes. That does include spirit and cheer and dance and mascot, which I'm also responsible for. So we include all of them in our count, because I am responsible for all of them, and they all obviously matter to us. So that gives you a little bit about us, I believe. Is there anything else that you feel like? Blue Hens, we're the only female mascot in the country. I don't know if you...
I did not know that.
Yeah. Judy is our mascot. It's a blue hen. We literally have an ag school here that has blue hens here. They're not blue, just so that everybody is wondering. They're not blue, but they're really cool birds. They're fighting birds. They're fighting birds. So we actually, for our football games, we have 3 of them that our fans named, that are in our fan lot, that kids get to come up and meet them and learn about them, because they're really interesting. They're really interesting birds. So, we love.
You ruined it for me, though, that I thought they were blue.
No.
My 5-year-old will be upset when I say they're the Blue Hens and we get there to visit campus.
Our stuffed animals are blue, but no, the hens.
Oh, there you go. I'll just get them one of those. One thing that is a theme of this season on the podcast is I don't think people are aware of how big some of these institutions are. For one, I'm guessing a lot of people in athletics that work in athletic higher education, either of those, that would realize that Delaware was an R1, which is a very high research activity, but also 24,000 students. I think we get these. We sometimes, and I arguably did this too, had a different impression on the size of a school, because we think of, we're talking about different tiers of D1 status. But I've learned, like your institution, North Texas, I had Ren Baker on, another very large institution than people really probably thought. So it's one thing that I hope I've asking this initial question I brought to some of the listeners is realize, like, wow, these schools are actually pretty big. You're the same size as University of Oregon, if not bigger.
Yes.
So just for those that are...
We have more sports and more student athletes than most, because we also carry baseball, men's lacrosse, and football, which a lot of people don't tend to carry all 3 of those at the mid-major level because of the count. But we proudly do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, kind of switching gears to more on focus on administration. At what point in your career did you actually know that you wanted to ultimately become the head athletic director of an institution? Because you were at Michigan, you were doing different roles at different places. And some people I think are okay always being, a senior level administrator, but maybe not taking that step. But what kind of clicked for you, if you can remember, like what made you realize you wanted to become an athletic director?
Yeah. So I would say, my career path, and you indicated this, has definitely been very interesting. I feel like I've had 4 or 5 different careers in the last 30 years, starting out with coaching at Michigan and then moving into higher ed administration on the fundraising side, but not being a frontline fundraiser, building talent management programs at both Northwestern and Michigan, and then being asked to join athletics to lead a transformational fundraising program and building one. So I've never led my career, or my career has never been led by, I want to be a vice president, I want to be an athletic director. It's always been driven by, I want to make a difference. I want to be working with people that care about the things I care about. I want to be challenged. I want to have the opportunity to, again, impact. And I think the reality is, as I kind of evolved in my career, I had wonderful people that kind of took me under their wing and gave me opportunities to continue to grow and evolve as a leader and also expand my responsibilities. So, it was one of those things that it just evolved, Travis. It wasn't like, I'm going to be an athletic director, I'm going to be a vice president. I think the reality is, if you want to make an impact and an overall large impact, you kind of got to be at the table, right? You got to be at the adult table, if you will. And so I always recognized that I had hoped that I would have the opportunity to do that, or at least have the choice. When the opportunity came, I wanted to have the choice. And, Delaware called. I had been in athletics, and to be honest, I was actually thinking about, do I want to stay or do I want to transition back into fundraising? And, when as you indicated at the beginning of this, when I learned more about the University of Delaware while I grew up on the East Coast, literally 45 minutes from this campus, I was just so incredibly impressed and excited and inspired by what was here. So that was a big part of it for me. I think the other thing is that, the way, because of my talent management background, how I want to build a culture, how I want to build a team, how I want to build programs, is maybe a little bit different than others. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to have responsibility for that and see if I could do that successfully, to be honest. And so there was a little bit of that as well, that, really focusing in on culture and focusing in on people and forward thinking and learning and innovation, and collective team, was something that I wanted to be able to build an organization that really valued that and believed in that, and ultimately leads to success, right? That you can have both. You can have a really healthy culture and you can have success on the field and in the classroom. And we can, collectively do that work together, to create sustainable success.
Yeah, and then being able to build that culture is a lot easier, I think, when the person that wants to build the right culture is at the table leading, because it's great to say you want to improve your retain your employees, build them up, have a good culture. But it's good to say that, but it might be harder to do that if the person leading is not the one wanting to do that. So
yeah, I mean, because it's work every day, right? This stuff never ends, and that's funny when I work with people and I say I wake up every day thinking about it, and it never ends. You're constantly working at it, and we're in a great place. I mean, no one's perfect, but we're in a great place. But it never ends. You have to continue to care and feed for your culture and your people.
Well, when I reached out to Christine, which we're going to talk about the chief of staff position in a second, but when I first reached out to her to set this up, see if you would be interested in it, she just said she was really happy that I thought of you because you're so great to work for, and it just came off so authentic because I didn't ask anything about that, and that's the first time anyone's saying like, oh yeah, you definitely will like talking to this person because we love her. So that was really cool to see, and that's what kind of reassured me that I was like, okay, I hope she says yes to the podcast. I want to talk about chief of staff position. So I've asked a few people on this season about this. And you have a chief of staff, Christine, is it Mangit? I
Dang
want
it.
to make sure
Yep.
I say it right. And
Yep.
who helped me set up the podcast. I recently spoke for a class project for our president's chief of staff here at IU. And it was really awesome because we talked for about 45 minutes and I was fascinated by the position. I've read a book about presidential chiefs of staff, and because that's what she recommended I do. But we're starting to see these chief of staff positions, I think, pop up more in athletic administration to be utilized. And I'm curious if that position, for one, was already there before you came, and if not, what led you to decide to actually implement that role, and what type of responsibilities come with it? Because sometimes it's also attached to a deputy AD role or senior associate. How do you kind of differentiate those, and what was the thought process?
Yeah. So it wasn't a position that was here prior to me coming. And I created it probably 2 years into my role. I look at organizations, I think I should, share that they're living, breathing. It's an ecosystem. They evolve, or they should evolve based on kind of industry evolution and, what's the need in the moment, but also really trying to look forward. And I knew the first 2 years that I needed to be pretty entrenched in the day to day and in everything that we were doing and how we were building it, because I took over, I would say, a startup turnaround, and I wanted to make sure that the path we were on was consistent with what I believed was going to be necessary to create success, as I described. And so at about year 2, it was clear it was time for me to go ahead and kind of pull myself up a little bit more and allow somebody to help with the day-to-day organizational efforts that were going on. And so that's when I decided to go ahead and hire a chief of staff that was really going to help be an extension of me. And everybody's chief of staff does something a little bit different. I actually myself did research to be able to understand. And I think part of this is, what do you need? Like, what do I need as a leader at this organization in order for us to be successful, in order for me to be successful, to lead the program. And, so at the time when I hired her, it was really that day to day, making sure that everything was running on time and people were following up. And, she was, again, an extension of me. There were meetings that she attended that I wasn't able to attend. And since then it's evolved. So it continues to evolve into what the need is. So, I really tried to find somebody that was kind of a jack of all trades, if you will, and had a high level of curiosity, great follow through, really understood the importance of relationships. I was fortunate. She is a UD grad and was in the fundraising area here at Delaware. So that was also something that was really helpful because, as this job, at least for me, knowing and understanding and having great relationships on campus is critically important. We want to and continue to work to be an integrated and integral part of this institution in advancing the academic mission. We're not just about the wins and losses. They're obviously important, and I understand that, but there's so much more to the work that we're doing. So, that was one of the reasons I decided to create this position. And like I said, it's continued to evolve and likely will continue to evolve based on what we need.
Well, my follow up to that was going to be, what advice would you give to athletic directors that are thinking of doing that? But you pretty much, if they listen, you put in a lot of advice in there. You said that you did some research before the position. So if you'd like, you could summarize the key points of what you would do, but also what type of research did you do? Like, did you have to look outside of athletics to kind of understand what it was?
Yeah. And again, I was trying to read and understand. And like to your point, some of it was tied to operational stuff. People tied it to, again, what they felt like was necessary. I think the bottom line takeaway is, what do you as a leader need? The chief of staff is intended to support you in your work, and it could go a lot of different directions. I think the other key is everybody needs to understand what the role is. So it wasn't just me it was me describing it to everybody. So they understood when Christine is coming to you, what does that mean? And that was also something that was important. So that would be the advice, honestly, is what do you need as the leader? to create to give you the opportunity to do the best you can and to lead in the way you need to lead for your organization to be successful, and then communicate that and empower that person to be able to do that.
I think the most important part I took out of my conversation with our chief of staff here at the president's office, and from listening to you, is you said that extension. So you're is basically, and it's what I read in the White House chief of staff book too. Is it's not you, it's the extension of the leader, because you are representing them at meetings, at conversations, and I think that is critical of the evolution of this role at other schools if it becomes an industry wide, because we're starting to see deputy ads pop up, and it's basically become the new senior associate ad, where it's you're leading your area, but now if the chief of staff, I like how you said define the role, and the extension part is great words that I've associated words that I've everybody that's talked about this, it's always been the extension of the president, extension of the ad, because you could get frustrated in the position. You always have to remember you're not speaking on behalf of yourself. So is that right? What I would be saying with that?
Absolutely. And I would say you also hit the nail on the head, which is again where the evolution comes into play. Is I now have, and I didn't when I first started, and I knew this was going to be the case, but year 5, I now have 3 deputy ads, and that again, the organization has evolved. I've evolved as a leader, and now I'm able to turn the not the complete keys, but they have a set of keys in the internal operations, COO area, external operations, revenue generation, and then student success, board administration. And so those 3 deputy ads have also really become an extension of myself, as well as we start year 6 here at Delaware under my leadership. So it's actually been incredibly fun for me, believe it or not, because these people, I mean, they've all been, Jordan's been with me since the beginning, came in as leading just the fundraising area. Now he oversees all of external, and Jamie Seguin and Jen Vining Smith are starting year 4, and they've really evolved into their roles as well. So it's,
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. I mean, promoting people, growing people, that's a huge part of what I believe is necessary to be successful.
Well, that might be a good segue into talking about the talent management area within the athletic department. I know you've done this at Michigan as well, and some component of this. But can you expand on the GOLD program and maybe also define what talent management is in college athletics, the way you see it?
Yeah, so it's no different than if you were to Google talent management, and as I was sharing with you earlier, when I was at Northwestern, this is where I got exposed to it. I took over the human resources area, it was called, and I was like, okay, this is so archaic, and everybody hates human resources. Sorry, human resources professionals out there, but like they hear that and they're like, I don't, and you think about paper pushers, right? And there's so much more, again, to creating a healthy culture with people. And we are a people business. We were a people business when I was leading talent management at Northwestern. And so I started to do research and homework, and took advantage actually of alumni in the community that were leading these areas. Allstate Insurance was actually right up the road, and the person leading Allstate talent management was a Northwestern alum. And so they were kind enough to give me time and explain it. And it basically is the life cycle of an employee. And, it starts from the recruitment, and it goes through, the onboarding, and then the education and the learning and the evaluation and the compensation and the growth. I mean, it's a cycle, and being sure that you really pay attention to all of those components of an employee's life cycle is key. And we've built that finally 5 years in. I started it when I was here, and we now have a program, and the GOLD program is that learning and development component. And so there's obviously specific things that we need to be doing from a training and education priority, especially in athletics, the compliance components and other things that are a part of that. But then there's also other ways in which we want people to grow and learn. And that's through how they communicate, learning their styles, emotional IQ. And it all leads back to how are they building and growing themselves personally and professionally in order to be more effective and more fulfilled in the work that they're doing. Because research shows if they're all those things, they're going to give you everything at work and they're going to enjoy it. And I say to folks, particularly athletics, I mean, you spend at least 8 hours a day with these humans, right? And man, oh man, do I want it to be fun. And I want it to be enjoyed. And it's not always going to be that way. I mean, we all don't love every part of our job, but my responsibility is to invest. It's to provide opportunities to invest in you. Now you got to choose. I say this to our student athletes, right? You got to choose. You have to be an active participant in your experience here, but you will have the opportunity to get better and you will be expected to get better. And, that's one of the things we talk about here is what makes us probably a little different. And I say that to anybody I interview is this place isn't for everybody. And that's okay. I'm not going to apologize for it. It's, you got to value the things we value. You got to be willing to do the hard work. You got to want to grow. You got to want to be better. You got to want to help your colleagues be better. And, if that's not what you're looking for, doesn't make us good and you bad. It's just, this is who we are.
Well, it's good to know who you are.
Yes.
And, a big reason I started this podcast, this is season 3 now, was around my doctoral program. And I knew it would help with research and just getting used to qualitative research interviews. But the other component was I've always been, we said before recording, when I explained my day job, I've always been kind of academics, one foot in compliance. And it's hard to, with our professional development opportunities and budgets being low, it's hard for people to even go to professional development. But also, you're kind of in this box of like, well, you either go to NAC or you go to N4A or you go to NAD or anything else, which is fine if people want to stay in one area. But I can learn a lot from talking to people that do different jobs than me. I mean, that's the big reason I started the podcast was, I could learn a lot from people and give them a platform to share and hopefully people that, I come from Division II and in my career too, where I know people can't make it to Orlando every year for NACDA, but they can listen to this podcast for free. And so hopefully they at least learn something. And I think what you just talked about will hopefully get some leaders to realize that maybe we should bring professional development opportunities in-house. And then also, I'm also kind of bullish on people should take advantage of, if they have the time, educational benefits at their institution, be able to take, a master's degree or another master's degree,
or just a class, or just a class that you're interested in, right? Like just a class you're interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can be fun and it can also be free for a lot of schools, or at least really discounted. So, you kind of going off of this same talent management area, you all have a very robust internship program, the Blue Hen capstone internship program. It seems like an incredible opportunity for undergraduate students at Delaware, not just student athletes, but all students. I was surprised about how many intern opportunities there are, but can you kind of expand on that program and then maybe talk about the return on the investment that you all have seen from a workforce and maybe fans? I mean, you might be making fans by doing this too.
Yeah. So, as I indicated earlier, our commitment is to be an integrated and an integral part of this institution, right? There's so much that we have available for our students to learn. And, they're studying it up on campus, but here, we have a business area, we have an HR talent management area, we have a communications area, video, finance, and students need those experiences, right? Here at Delaware. And so when I came in, I was like, we have to create an internship program. We have to create a pipeline for our students to come down. First of all, we need it because we need smart people coming down to help us solve problems and get our work done. And we want to do it because we want to be contributing to the experiences of our students here in any and every way possible, not just as fans, but really not way more meaningful, but meaningful and having a long-term impact on their careers potentially. And so we did research to figure out, what's out there. And one of the things we came upon is that there's a healthy number of majors out there that you're required to do a 450-hour capstone internship project. So free for us, right? as far as money goes, obviously a significant investment in them professionally and personally. And that's what I wanted to be clear about. Is it's why we created the different professional opportunities within it. But we have 12 to 16 a semester in all of our areas. And it's been awesome. And we continue to get word of mouth now. So the applications have increased because people are having such great experiences, and it's changing people's career paths, to be honest. I mean, one of the other opportunities that we have is our dietetics program here is one of the best in the country as well. They never had a sport rotation, never, until I got here and we created a nutritionist position. We've had probably over 100 students come through, and now grad students. I mean, it's a very complicated major, and you have to have a master's degree, and there's lots of components to it. We now have, I mean, this is so cool. It makes me so excited. Students that are coming to shadow us even before to almost decide if they want to come to Delaware. And they're choosing to come to the University of Delaware because they want a nutrition major and they want to be able to do it in sport. Hello. And what I want to do with our campus, and I'm getting there, is for them to recognize that we can be that for them. There are people that want sport analytics. There are people in high school, right? They're doing these things already as they're coming into college. Well, bring them here and let's get them to work, because we have lots of things to do down here, lots of problems to solve. We want to be forward thinking. We want to be contributing to the academic experience of these young people. It's so fun. And I mean, the analytics stuff I gave you an example of, we have 4 capstone interns in that. I mean, that is blowing up right now. In a statistics program, which is a bunch of grad students, we just got them involved and they're like, give me more. We want to be involved. So as you can tell, I get excited about it. I'm passionate about it because, again, we don't exist without the University of Delaware. We don't. And I said this when I was at Michigan. This doesn't matter to me about how much money you have in your bank account. This is like, we don't exist. And we absolutely have a responsibility to the institution and the students here to contribute to their academic experiences in whatever way we possibly can. And there's a lot of ways. And, I think our faculty and our deans are starting to really understand the value we can add and what that means to, the campus, which is fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it helped me out. A similar programming. When I was working at University of Indianapolis, I know that we had a lot of athletic training students. Now it's moved to a master's program, so it's a little different. But used to have undergraduate students that would want to come there to be an athletic training major because they were going to work directly with student athletes and taping ankles, even if it's all that's what they're doing. They were learning on the job as part of their hours. And in my undergraduate experience at IUPUI, I had to do, I think, 1,000 hours for an internship. It was a whole semester class. And I went across the city to University of Indianapolis. I did compliance and I did game operations. I ran volleyball. I was the best DJ for volleyball games, got the crowd going.
Love it.
But it was an awesome experience where I just kept going after my 1,000 hours. And I wouldn't probably be in college athletics if it wasn't for that capstone requirement. But also schools like University of Indianapolis, which I wasn't a student at, but employed there. But it's just that's an example similar to Delaware where there's a lot you can do. I know there's fellowship programs that are popping up at a lot of schools, but that's usually one position. But being able to utilize, a capstone project at the institution level is awesome. So I can tell you get excited about it.
I do. And one of the other things I would add is, we just built the Whitney Athletic Center, which is all 600 student athletes get to utilize it. It's sport performance on the first floor and student success on the second floor. And as I've brought people through, our leadership in particular, I point out, there are not just student athletes, because everybody says, is this for just student athletes? Well, to some extent, yes, but look around you at all the students that are here having that experiential opportunity that they would not otherwise have. And that means a lot. Means a lot.
Well, we're going to move to probably a completely different aspect here now. We're going to talk about fundraising.
Yes.
Because you seem to be known for your ability to significantly increase fundraising. At Delaware, you led a campaign in 2017, secured $38 million in 20 months. And then back at Michigan, you raised 170. And I know you have a team doing this too, but and at Michigan, you raised
I got a lot of really smart people around me.
but $170 million, including a $100 million gift at Michigan. First question is, what do you think has made you become a successful fundraiser as an individual, but also leading a team of fundraisers?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I would say, I love fundraising. And I love it because I'm incredibly passionate about what I fundraise for. And I think that's one of the keys, is that I believe in what I raise money for. And I believe in who I'm doing it for, who I'm doing it with. And I think that's really important. I think the other thing is, the relationships and listening to understand your alumni and your donors and others, and really, what do they care about? What matters to them? It's their money. It's their hard-earned money. What matters to them? And how do I then look to make connections and create a win-win for them to feel so good about their gift and to see the impact. I mean, walking donors through the Whitney, Travis, is like, I mean, they are so grateful to be a part of it and so happy that they could be a part of this. And they recognize the impact it's having on these young people's lives. And for me to be able to, I mean, that's like a privilege, right? I see that as a privilege. I don't see it as a job. I feel fortunate to be able to represent the University of Delaware and to, have the opportunity to talk to these people that love this university and connect them to things they care about. And sometimes that's athletics, and sometimes it's not, and that's okay. That's the other thing, is that incredibly proud about the money we've raised for the university through, the people we've met, and expose them to more than just athletics. Because, I mean, this sounds probably more crass than I mean it. I want all their money to come to Delaware. I said the same thing at Michigan. I want all their money to come to Michigan. There's so many wonderful things that are going on here that why wouldn't we want to expose them to everything? It doesn't take away from what they're going to give to athletics. If anything, what I found, they want to give more to all parts of the institution. And so, being really clear about what you're raising money for, why is it important? Getting people to understand that and learn that. A big thing that I've had to do here at Delaware is educate people on philanthropy. So that's been a process that I've had to work through, which is a bit new. I mean, Michigan, we were in our 6th fundraising campaign as an institution. Athletics hadn't done that kind of fundraising that we launched into with Dave Brandon and kind of this broad-based fundraising effort. But Delaware, we're literally finishing our first campaign institutionally. So, but it was fun. I mean, I don't see it as, it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard, but I love the work.
Well, I talked to Ren Baker about this too, because I've heard that he's been bullish on fundraising too, and clearly enjoys it in North Texas. I use this as an example I'm thinking about tactical advice for people that might be either hesitant or afraid or feel bad about asking for money. You put in some great advice there. I look at it more as like people's fear of public speaking. Sometimes I feel like the more you practice public speaking, the more knowledgeable you are. I mean, I used to be deathly afraid in college of speaking in public. And then I remember I won a research award in 4A, and part of the thing that I didn't realize is if you win, you have to present at the national convention. And this is before they moved it to like now there's like 4 winners, and you just do research posters and you don't present. No, I was like talking about academic clustering in college football in the NFL, and I had to present in front of like 200 people at convention. I was like 22 years old, and but I practiced a lot. I was very confident then, but I remember back that seems like a comparative to what I think a lot of people think about as fundraising. It's like, I don't want to ask for money. I'm scared to ask for money. But what would your advice be for people that are hesitant, and how to get over it if that's something they're going to need to know in their job.
Yeah. I mean, I should also say I get nervous too. You know,
It's like a healthy nervous though now. Like, I still
100%.
I
Yeah.
get like excited because I do a lot of public speaking for my job and then hosting a podcast. You get a little nervous to talk to people, but then you're excited about it. It's a little different.
Yeah, it's almost like I equate it to like when I was getting ready to swim a race, right? That's what I feel, and I psych myself up, and I do very similar things that I used to do when I was getting ready to race. I think what I've done is what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay, they're going to say no. Okay. Anybody die? No. You know, what is like, play in your mind the worst thing that's going to happen. Like, let's just talk that through and kind of work through that. I also 100% agree, practice and preparation, right? Part of it is preparation and going through. I mean, this is why I also love it, is because you don't just go ask. I mean, that's not how our world works, at least at the major gift level. It's about the relationship. It's about coming in and understanding what's that individual's story. Why do they love Delaware? What is it that matters to them? And listening and, just taking it all in. I mean, I didn't ask for a gift the first year I was here. I just listened and I tried to understand what was motivating these people and what they wanted and what was meaningful to them. And so part of it is preparation. So it's practice, but it's also preparation for that moment. And if you've done the work to get to that moment, it's not like you're asking because somebody's going to expect you to do that. Sometimes people preempt it and be like, we know what you want. Here you go.
I think a lot of people
too long, but again, that's kind of practice too, is you kind of get a sense of when the timing is right. And, but I think it's preparation as well as practice. I really do.
Well, I would assume that people know that you're eventually going to ask them for money at this point anyways. It's not like it's a secret of like, so they know it's coming. So as long as you're authentic, I would think it's easy for me to say I haven't had to do fundraising. But
yeah, and one of the questions that we tell our gift officers to ask we do ask this in the first visit or one of the first two is there anything that would prevent you from philanthropically supporting the University of Delaware?
It's a good first initial conversation point.
But you're right. They know who you are, what you're coming for. And I think this gives you an opportunity to kind of open it up a little bit. And well, back in the day, the crap you hear, right? Parking tickets and my professor gave me this grade and my coach did this. And you're like, okay, so I got to work through that, right? Like understanding what some of the obstacles are going to be is really helpful. And just because somebody says, there's no way I'm going to give, that doesn't mean they won't. I mean, part of what I found here at Delaware and even at Michigan in some moments is that when people really complained, I knew I was going to get them at some point. They were going to give at some point because they cared, right? They cared. If there was silence, I'd be running for the hills because you can do something with kind of that frustration.
Well, it would be horrible if you found out that miss out on $1 million gift because of a campus parking attendant gave someone a ticket on campus for like $35. Kept them from registering for classes the next semester, and they didn't get the classes they liked, and that's $1 million gift now. But hopefully that has not happened.
Well, the parking ticket is real. It is real that we had to get that taken care of.
Hey, I went to undergrad at IUPUI, and those listening that know IUPUI, very scarce parking, and it is downtown Indianapolis. So I was plentiful of I probably had like a whole tuition bill of comparative of parking tickets, but I paid it all off, I promise. So we're rounding third base here of the interview, and I want to kind of move to another tactical advice area. You've been responsible for already hiring 12 head coaches since arriving to Delaware. I'd like to bring some more advice for those that will eventually, hire, evaluate, and likely have to fire head coaches. I was sitting on an AD interview once on campus at a previous institution, and he got the job, and he, in a group full of coaches, said like honestly, coaches are hired to eventually be fired or they move on, and it's just part of it. He was asked about his evaluation process, but I'm curious, what things specifically are you looking for in a head coach hire, and then how and when do you actually evaluate head coaches?
Mhm. So, at the core of it, and this is regardless of whether you're a head coach or not, is, we have four really clear values: inclusivity, integrity, excellence, and pride, and being proud. Before you even walk in the door, I need to make sure your values align with who we are, like I mentioned earlier. And, a big part of that too is a team player, somebody that understands the value of team and is not going to be siloed in their sport. Everything we do here is integrated. We work incredibly closely together because it's one person, right? One student athlete. And we have to be cognizant of all the inputs that student athlete is experiencing in athletic training, strength and conditioning, coaches, professors, leadership, academics. And, so how do we simplify that world for those student athletes? And what that requires is working together in a very integrated way. So you have to come to the table knowing that it's not just about you, that this is about these student athletes and it's about Delaware. And you want to be successful for the University of Delaware. So that's kind of core. And then somebody that is in this also, Travis, depends on where we are from a program perspective. I mean, as you probably saw, or maybe you didn't, but when I came here, we were like a glorified club program. We had a lot of part-time coaches. Our tennis players were buying their own tennis rackets. Our cross-country team had one pair of shoes and they needed three, and they were buying those other two. So we were not in a position where I would call us like a viable Division I program. And so, what I needed to hire and what I have hired is people that are program builders, right? They understood what it meant and all of the different elements to building a program. They understood roster management, scholarship management, scheduling philosophies, overall player development. We aren't going to get the 5 stars like we got at Michigan. We're going to get the maybe 1 star or the 2 star or the no stars, and we got to develop them. So somebody that understands how to develop players and people. Teachers is also a fundamental characteristic and experience that you got to know how to teach the game, and you got to know how to continue to learn to be better at the game. You can't think you're going to be stagnant. So a high level of curiosity, I almost call them a student of the game, is one of the things I love when I meet coaches. And I always ask them the questions: how do you stay relevant? What do you do to help make sure that you're relevant in how you teach and how you coach? And yeah, the X's and O's, of course, but as head coaches, you do less and less of that nowadays than your assistants. And then, thinking about who do you surround yourself with? Do you really know yourself? Are you going to be hiring people that are going to help you be better? Are you threatened by that? Are you willing to recognize that you aren't really good at that? So you got to hire somebody that is really good at that, and then you got to let them do it. So that's a lot there, but I think the fundamental stuff I talked about, and then the other things were all elements of what I was hiring for when I first got here. I probably wouldn't necessarily hire differently if somebody left, but some of it is we've got healthier cultures now within each of our programs, and the point in what we were doing is it's not about the coach. The coach isn't driving the culture. The kids are driving the culture. I mean, there's fundamental stuff that we're all grounded in, but if the coach retires or leaves for a different job, the next coach isn't building the culture. The next coach is coming in. They fit with the culture because they align. Our values are all aligned, and they just continue to move it forward and get it to be better, if that makes sense.
No, that's actually a great differentiation of what you might think. Like, some might think that, well, I hired for culture last time, I got to hire for culture again. But then you're like, I've been a part of schools that had a lot of building coaches, but a lot of them stayed because they loved the places they were at. But also, I've also been around succession planning of retiring and then hiring. When I was at University of Indianapolis, we hired football, men's basketball, and forget what other baseball. We hired all three of those head coaches, all retired within a year and a half, and they all ended up hiring their top assistant elevated to the head coach. And part of the reason is because the culture of winning was so strong and everyone liked the way things are going. And I think you take a lot of heat if you hire within too, because like North Carolina and Duke, for example, hired within. But and I know a lot of institutions do, because then you're not seen as hiring outside. But to the point you just made, if the culture's good and there's no problem within the program, why would you necessarily go through the risk of bringing an outsider? Because then you could alienate the people on the current team and the department. Would that be something that you think maybe we don't talk enough about?
Absolutely. And I think this comes back to what I talked about earlier, investment in your people. I mean, that's what I ultimately would want and hope for, is that we've got future head coaches either here at Delaware or other places, and that we are investing in them and exposing them and giving them the opportunity so that when they are ready to move over that 18 inches, that they're ready. And, if it happens to be here, that's great. If it doesn't, we celebrate people being promoted and going other places. There's only so many head coaches I have. There's only so many opportunities that we have here to put people into higher level positions. So, having more people go out into the world that have Delaware experience and can speak to and teach what we've been teaching, I love that. And I hate turnover, but that's part of what we're building. What we've built here is, if we're investing in our people, they're going to go off and do great things elsewhere. That's okay. We also are focused on internal promotion. We've done a lot of that in the last couple of years, and it's been awesome to be able to do that and to see that and to see people experiencing that as they're coming in. The other day, so I was interviewing somebody, and they're like, "So what's a career opportunity for me, or how do you, what do you do?" I said, "Well, 7 of the 8 people have been here for 5 years or 4, and they've all been promoted. So why don't you ask them?" Ask them.
Mic drop.
Well, ask them. Why did they stay? What did they, what have they done to invest in themselves to get them to this point? And
that's great. Well, the last topic I want to cover, we've kind of alluded to this earlier about how when you got there, it was kind of a glorified club program, but you also supervise, and it's in your title, the recreation program for University of Delaware, including club and intramurals, and have administrators on your staff, apparently on the directory, to handle the day-to-day, it appears, of those areas too, which is another cool opportunity. I also like you all have the recreation website is integrated and styled just like the athletics website, which is unheard of. Usually there might be like the club site looks just like the school site, and there might be like an athletics landing page or something like that. But can you kind of share and explain that oversight and structure of overseeing both an intercollegiate athletic program, the NCAA level, but then also an intramural or recreational club program, and how you kind of manage those then and now?
Yeah. So, again, it comes back to the integration of our work. And at the end of the day, there's lots of benefits and value to this. And I'm also a believer, Travis, of it doesn't matter where it reports. If I'm working with my colleagues across the campus all the time. So, you will see this area either reporting into athletics or reporting into student life. It goes either way. And our VP for student life and I talk about this. I'm like, at the end of the day, does it matter? Because if we're working together to do the very best things for the students, then we're going to be making decisions together. And whether it's reporting to you or me, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think the value of reporting into athletics, there's a lot of shared resources, our athletic trainers, strength and conditioning, we provide a lot of advice and oversight, facilities. That's one of the things that's been awesome is since I got here, we weren't giving as much access to both our club sports and our intramural sports to our facilities down here. And now that they're able to play on and practice on our facilities. And, the really cool thing is they want to do it when we're not here, right? It's not an inconvenience for them to be doing it at night. That's when they want to do it. So it works really well. And, the people that work for me are integrated into our marketing and communications team, supports them. Our facilities team supports them. Like I said, our sport performance team supports them. So they're just integrated into the work that we're doing on a daily basis. And they have a set strategy that we're all aware of and that we all subscribe to and that we all support, just like athletics has a set strategy that they understand and they recognize where they contribute to that and how they impact that as well. So, it works. I love it. I love, again, the opportunity to have impact for 24,000 students. It's really pretty meaningful to me. So, whether, it is unique, but it's not, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's fun.
Yeah, and it's mostly at smaller private institutions. I grew up about 10 minutes from DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. Stevie Baker Watson does a great job overseeing both. I visit that campus a lot whenever I go visit my parents. I had Dr. Nikki Moore from Colgate on, and it's similar structure there. You're obviously a lot bigger institution than both of those that I mentioned, and I'm sure there's others that are doing this, but you just mentioned a lot of good things about it. Do you see this maybe becoming a more regular structure at bigger institutions where it can go under athletics in the future? Because there might be some restructuring, whether it's after COVID or strategic plans. Maybe people want to combine more things with their athletic department.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it all depends on how the leader views the world, right, and the work. I think it absolutely could. I don't know. It's a great question. I think it all depends on the leadership and how they view alignment and integration, and are they able to think beyond what is kind of
intercollegiate versus
it's sport.
Yeah, when you think about the history of, I took a history of higher education. One of the weeks of the semester was talking about collegiate sport, and a lot of people know the beginnings of how college sports started, but it's not that long ago that having a separate athletic department was like a thing. It used to be reporting to a lot of ways how Division III still does it, and Division II sometimes, because that's how it was originated. And it kind of, I don't think it's that weird to have your structure. I think it's just more rare now because we've had this proliferation, and you all have been able to do both at Delaware. And obviously, since you've been there, kind of grown the intercollegiate side of it, and the NCAA side. One school that I want to do some more research on and trying to get their chancellor on, but she started during the pandemic, so I figured she's a little busy. But University of Colorado Denver campus, they are very bullish on club sports and intramurals, but they don't have an intercollegiate athletic program, what we would see. And so it's a school, a very urban university setting that I'm going to do some more research on. But that's the only one I can think of really that has a pretty big thing without an athletic department, and it might be the future. So it's just one that I'm kind of paying attention to.
Well, and then we have a very successful club program here. We have 39 sports, and about half of them, and obviously they're student run. So, but very, very committed, very serious, compete nationally, win nationally. So it's a huge recruiting tool for the campus as well. I mean, I know that, we are very focused on those experiences for students, and they want to come, and they may not want to. They may either two things. They may not have been able to make a D1 program, or they didn't want to compete at that level, but they still wanted to be able to compete and get better and win. And you can do that here in a lot of sports on the club level. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just every time I see an institution that can do both so well and organized well and work together, it's like University of Delaware. It's exciting. So. Like to end it on there, but Chrissi Rawak, Director of Athletics and Recreation at University of Delaware, thanks for being on the Higher Ed Athletics podcast.
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate it. And go Hens.